Hello, ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond. My name is Taylor, and welcome to the art table for August of 2024, this time featuring the wonderful and colorful commission artist, Keekeeome, or Keekee as I will be referring to her. Now, Keekee does a series of different digital illustrations from well-established franchises along with her own characters, many of which are spectacularly vibrant. Keekee is available on most social media platforms, which will obviously be linked down below. But if you're interested in getting a commission from her, please go to her website as it has all the commission information there, and that is also linked. So to get the usual disclaimer out of the way, I do not take any sort of kickback, promotion, discount, commission, payment, or anything of the sort in relation to these videos. I do this purely for the love of the artwork. If I have had a commission done by the artist, I will let you know. If I do not mention it, then that means I have not had a commission done by them. All commission prices, timing, everything like that is set by the artist. Any deals you make are between you and them. I am in no way involved, cannot get you a discount, cannot get anything sped up, and cannot get you in contact with them. That is purely up to you. They have every right to refuse, every right to set the time frame they feel is appropriate, and the price they feel is appropriate. Please do not share their artwork without their permission. I have written permission from every artist that I feature here on the channel, and please do not share my video without the appropriate watermarks and the appropriate disclaimer, because I am sharing someone else's work with their permission for me to share it, not for you. Now, I have never gotten a commission from her, but I may very well request one in the future, and if I do, I will be sure to include that in the comments and description. Of course, that would be in no way related to this video. So I wanted to open with what I felt kind of the largest number of people would resonate with, but it also, it just looks super cute and colorful, which very much speaks to Keekee's style. It seems to center around making colors pop without making them overwhelming or garish. I do feel like I'm looking at a world made of neon candy. Just look at the Ghastly. She used the shiny coloring for a wonderful touch of blue, but still gave it that wispy and ethereal feeling so that it wouldn't blend in too much with the background. Even the changes in shading for the Haunter and Gengar make them look so much cuter than their original versions, with a beautiful vibrancy in their purples. This will really show how much of a nerd I am, but when I compare these, Pokemon to their original sprites, it's like looking at Times New Roman compared to the rainbow bubble letters that some kids use on their poster boards for a school project. I also love the eyes because they're very distinctive between the three, and you can distinguish them from the rest of the body without it blinding you. The color palette here is immaculate, and I think what I appreciate most of all is how clean and controlled the chaos is. Of cramming in all three with such stunning colors and still having them complement one another is incredible. Ghastly draws in the eye with it being the only blue in the image, and then you naturally move down to Haunter and finally Gengar without any one of them taking too much real estate or stealing the show. And of course, purple being my favorite color, I knew I had to cover these guys. And thankfully for me, purple is also the color of the next character that I opted for. So I selected Spyro because honestly, he was a real blast from the past for me. I remember playing the game as a kid, but I never have as an adult. It's been a long time. So seeing him rendered in such a gorgeous detail, I knew I wanted to talk about him. What really drew me in were the little details, such as the white flecks on his skin or the way the flames seemingly curl near the ends, making them look like something you would find in a storybook. There are also the small details such as the difference in saturation of the pinks for the flames, and all the small changes in the background that give it the illusion of fire. In addition to all those, she even put an outline of sparkling purple to accent his orange wings. I can't stop there either. You can see in the upper left corner, she has blurred the fire down and made a portion of the wing visible. I also love the overall color scheme. She clearly made deliberate decisions about the color of the fire and background, which are very distinctive and complementary for Spyro's color himself. Even including the dragonfly that's to the right of center, who looks super cute and again stands out due to the color selection being so much different but not clashing with what's already there. Speaking of color, yet again, I loved the palette choices for this next image. Now, I grabbed a few screen recordings of Keekee's TikTok, which will also be linked down below, because she's done some amazing speed draws or speed paints or whatever they happen to be, and have shown a great number of steps in the processes. This majestic animal is named Feelix and is a familiar of the witch Ophelia, which I believe is one of her original characters. I absolutely love the combination of this seemingly demonic fae with gorgeous, soft, and warm color scheme. The bull skull and just the general feral shape give off the vibes of this wild creature that will rip you limb from limb, but when paired with that gentle, warm color palette, it takes on an entirely different feeling. It makes the creature seem so much more welcoming and so much more like a comfort, closer to a pet than a guardian. It demonstrates the importance of color when trying to create a feeling and can be more powerful than the design or shape of the creature itself. If this was given a much darker color scheme, or even one on the cooler end of the spectrum, it would have a feeling either less welcoming or even scary. I also love the small details once again, where she adds in small changes to give the fur, there's that nice bit of texture that makes it seem more real, more like fur. I genuinely want to give this thing a hug when I see it because it looks super cute and cuddly when it comes down to it. Speaking of cuddling, the next one is, it's heart-meltingly cute. So this is probably one of the most, normal images I have for the video, but it's so cute. There's no other words, it's just cute. I love tuxedo-colored cats, so it was almost like a magnet for me. Funnily enough, this is one of the least colorful images that I've actually chosen for the video, but it looks so cute with its massive eyes and its gentle sparkle just bring me in. I also love the light, almost sky blue background, because it helps all the other colors really pop, and gives the kitty such a cute silhouette around the edge. Now, there's not a lot for me to say here. I've called it cute, I think, way too many times that the word has stopped meaning anything, and it looks like it would be very happy to just laze around on your lap all day long. There is one thing to be done, though, and that would be to give them a name. Now, I would personally go with Pancake, because they look like they'd be an absolute goofball, but do let me know in the comments what you would name them. Please do not say Gregory. We have enough of those already. Speaking of kitties, though, I actually grabbed one more. So, this is another aforementioned TikTok video, but to pick something a little more colorful. This adorable little guy has the most striking videos because it's one of the most adorable things I've ever seen, and show how the small differences that some artists go through when deciding how they want to pose and color the images can make such a dramatic difference. I love the contrast to not only the white tiger against the black background, but also the splash that the color adds, and the beautiful accents that it creates to give it even more depth. The way that the colorful palette starts off warm and then contrasts into the deep, colder tones, finally finishing off with a lighter version of those same tones to the turquoise, is a really interesting journey. Because you go from one end of the spectrum to the other to then finally kind of meet in the middle, though it is closer to the colder side. It creates that vivid range of colors that make it so much more beautiful. It is honestly one of the cutest images I've ever featured on the channel, and I would be over the moon if someone made this to a plushie. I mean, if it were legal, I would happily own this as a real animal, but I understand the implications of that, and I will settle for a beautiful image. I do not want to end up as the next Tiger King. And once again, we must name this little guy, and I think the Korean word for rainbow would be the most fitting. Not only the color, but the fact that tigers have gone extinct here in Korea, and I of course live here now, so I apologize in advance for my terrible pronunciation, but I would be calling it Mujige. So, again, I apologize, I'm sure I butchered that, but do let me know in the comments what you would want to name this little guy. Please, please no more Gregory. So, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, we have reached the halfway point. Thank you very much for sticking around to this point in the video. Once again, Keekee's information will all be linked in the description down below. If you are interested in commissioning her, please check out our website. I won't go through the regular disclaimer again because it's a little long and takes up too much time, but please be respectful. If nothing else, just be respectful. With all that being said, let's get to the last half of these pictures. I'm really excited for this. So I grabbed this next one because it felt like such a departure from her usual style. She does have a small series of other pixel style images, but the Dragonborn is one of the ones that really stood out the most. It's super well detailed, especially considering the art style. And it feels like what people, seemingly remember when they think of the pixel art style back in its original version, not during this kind of renaissance that it's experiencing. And, when you have those rose-colored nostalgia glasses on, this is what you're seeing, not what it actually looked like. The coloration in the eyes and the small details around the scarf were really well done, and they had so much depth to making it feel more three-dimensional, despite being one of the most two-dimensional art styles. They strike me as a more sophisticated scholarly type, but who's always judged as being a rampaging rage machine purely because of their species, and that they would much rather sip tea with a good book than throw someone through a wall. Honestly, those both sound like a great time. I would be down to drink the tea or be thrown through a wall. Why not? It is interesting that she seemingly gave the character more of a kind of furry texture when it came to the arms, legs, and tail, though. The areas could certainly be more scaly, but the tail is where I get confused. It is certainly seemed to be more of a fur texture, but that is also one of the risks of the pixel graphic style. Again, she has others in the same style that are super well done, but I wanted to grab this as a highlight for now, so be sure to check out the others. So I selected this one partly because it's said to depict one of the goddess characters from the Harvest Moon series, which of course inspired, partially, Stardew Valley and many of the spin-offs that came from that, which is naturally one of my favorite games of all time, and actually a few others. So though I have personally never played Harvest Moon, I respect the legacy that is left behind, especially with such stunning character design that they had for Keekee to, recreate. Everything is beautifully rendered, and I love the small accents in the hair, especially the kind of saturated green, which helps break up the visuals and make it all seem more real. I don't know what realm or element this goddess is related to, but I imagine it would have to be something with either water, based on the colors it gives off, our very kind of natural sea vibes. Especially with the light and desaturated greens turning into the deeper blues as you get farther away from the shore. It feels like, you're seeing the seaweed kind of on the shore, sprouting up from the sands, but as you get deeper and deeper and deeper, that water just gets darker and darker and darker. The clothing itself is very nebulous or even kind of airy themed with how light and flowing it is, which all lends this feeling of elegance and grace with everything that she does. I would have more to say if I knew the character, but sadly I do not. Maybe I'll play Harvest Moon one day, but we'll see. Anyway, moving on to something I am a little more familiar with. So, as many of you know, I teach English here in Korea, and the last term we actually did a course on Gothic literature, which of course meant that I had to teach Frankenstein. Now, I certainly believe that is one of the most iconic Gothic novels, and was the first thing that came to mind when I saw this character. I have since been corrected. This is not actually a female version of Frankenstein, though I'll be running with that interpretation for now. I think the biggest things that created the association in my head were the color of the hair and the kind of dead, almost soulless eyes with no color to them at all. I don't believe, again, that this is meant to be a depiction of female Frankenstein, and it's not. And one of the big indicators was the clearly Eastern-inspired influences and the use of the hammer as a hairpin, which was a super nice touch. Regardless, this is again super well detailed, and the difference in gradients when it comes to the skin tones really helps the picture feel more alive. Pun fully intended. This woman looks elegant yet deadly. She's the kind of person you would not want to meet in a back alley because she will approach you wearing the smile with the most beautiful kimono while mercilessly stabbing you to death with that same smile still plastered on her face. I also have the small heart next to her right. He gives off, again, that air of innocence, which hides a much deeper secret. Speaking of secrets, I'm sure this next one has a few to keep. I really liked the mixture of a warlock with a tarot card written, because I can see this character running the shop to tell others their fate while borrowing the power of their patron deity, who gets something in return. I have to wonder if that something has to do with the fates of the people who she foretells, that the god preys upon, whether it be fortune or failure. I'm not entirely sure what race this character is supposed to be, as the horns and skin color are very unfamiliar to me. But I would imagine them to be more of an infernal race, someone akin to demons. I also found the designs along her arms were very interesting, as they gave off the feeling of nature and the branching paths of fate that she may or may not control. I also find the ring around her tail to be really interesting because it looks far too large for, said tail, but it's likely kept in place with some kind of magic. The cards also look awesome. I can see all the intricate details that she's placed on the backs, and there was clearly a lot of time and attention put into it with all the small details, including the fact that she's given the eyes the same color pattern as the smoke behind her. Even the attire looks more Romani inspired, which is certainly an interesting cultural association given the characters engaged in tarot. Now, I don't know if that was intentional or if it's just because that, you know, tarot card readers and the mysticism have been so heavily associated with Romani culture, so I don't want to speak too heavily on that one. And finally, we move on to our last piece. So I grabbed this last selection because it has so much more than some of the others I've selected, because, I mean, there's going to be 4 images that you'll be seeing going across the screen. It shows all the different stages, or rather many of the different stages, that so many artists go through when creating a finished piece. I can see that it begins with a rough outline sketch, the idea of what she wants the shapes to look like, before deciding what colors to fill it in with. This seemingly followed by, I guess, a colored sketch version, where the rough lines are smoothed down, the initial colors are put in, and then in this case, blending them together to great effect, it seems. Honestly, I love the combination of the pastel colors that she's used here, and I think they work really well with the more pale skin tone. It helps everything else to, again, pop, to really jump out, to grab you and pull you in. It also serves as a way for her to experiment with what direction she wants to go. I imagine that this step is easier to change than the render or, quote, I would call it painting portion, which would lead to the finished product. Following that is the initial painting stage, where the artist lays down the foundational colors, which seem to be complemented by the other colors and details to be built on top of to create a much better product. This layer seems to be less details, as she's filled with, you know, kind of blanket the whole layer with different colors, just saying how they would fit in with the framework. Then of course comes the finished product with all the details and the hair, eyes, and of course the background. And it looks absolutely stunning with so many little things here and there. The shading of the hair, the way the light changes as it shines, and all of the colors blending and merging together to create this amazing rainbow. It was such a spectacular combination of vibrancy. Apparently it's a vampire, and of course, you know, breaks numerous traditions and stereotypes around what a vampire should look like, which I think is great. There's nothing wrong with that. So many artists, and I mean, this has been becoming less and less common in the modern times, but there are still so many people who get this idea that any type of creature, especially when they're either humanoid or not human at all, should fall into certain ideas, fall into certain molds. And it's when we get stuff like this that really helps break that idea of, why does my vampire have to be dark and brooding and blah, blah, blah? Why not have them, you know, be super sparkly and cute and anime without making them sparkle like Twilight did? So I just think it's a great representation of modern art, moving away from those stereotypes, away from those forced, fixed ideas of what other races could be. And with all that being said, thank you, ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Once more, if you're interested in Keekee's work, commission her for your own accord and check her out on her website. If you want to see more of her work, check out all of her socials. I'll link down below, of course, and let me know what you think. And if there are any other artists that you want me to cover, please let me know and I will be sure to contact them. With everything being said, with all that in mind, thank you everyone once more for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.